Back in 2017, Guerrilla Games released Horizon Zero Dawn, a story about a young woman trying to find her place in the world and discovering that she serves a higher purpose than anyone could have ever imagined. The game was received positively, but had one fatal flaw. It was released on February 28th, 2017, which was 3 days before The Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Breath of the Wild is one of the defining games of the 2010s, with that game being one of the most well-received games of all time. Unfortunately, there wasn't the time nor the budget for a lot of people to play Horizon Zero Dawn before getting into Breath of the Wild, and the game was relatively glossed over by a majority of gamers for a bit. However, in the following years, Horizon Zero Dawn was discovered by more and more people and became a great success for Guerrilla Games, eventually selling over 20 million copies. Now, Guerrilla is at it again, releasing Horizon Forbidden West, with just a week before Elden Ring. The game voted for most anticipated game at last year's Game Awards. But there's something different this time around. People have Horizon Forbidden West on their radar, and it's making more of a splash on first impressions than the original did. I mean, why shouldn't it? People now know that this is a title worth keeping on their radar. Horizon Forbidden West is one hell of a display for Guerrilla and Sony, and what I consider to be one of the most defining titles of the new console generation. I mean, just look at it. There is so much to see and do in Horizon Forbidden West that in the 40 or so hours it took me to finish this game, I didn't even venture to every part of the map. As sequels go, it's what a sequel should be. But let's get into exactly why all of that is. I'm Tallen with 5 Night Gaming Direct, and I'm here to present to you our full in-depth review of Horizon Forbidden West. Before we get started, we'd love it if you would subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts down below on Horizon Forbidden West. For anyone out there that might be playing through the game still, there will be heavy spoilers presented within this section of the review. So please feel free to skip to the timestamp displayed on screen if you'd like to discover the game's story for yourself. Horizon Forbidden West picks up about 6 months after the end of Horizon Zero Dawn. After shutting down Hades, the AI from the previous game, Aloy starts a search for a backup of Gaia, a super advanced terraforming AI created to resurrect life on Earth after a machine plague ravaged the planet, in order to fend off a new type of blight that seems to be destroying the planet. With storms tearing through the atmosphere and a type of red growth killing off plant life, there's limited time for Aloy to succeed in finding what she needs to save humanity. In her time attempting to find a solution, Aloy discovers that Silence escaped with Hades after her standoff against the malevolent AI. Silence tells Aloy that he interrogated Hades and has information that can help her, but she must find him in the Forbidden West. In the pursuit of her self-serving benefactor, she ventures west, only to be met by a new tribe called the Tanakh. The Tanakh have long been at war with the Karja tribe, a tribe that helped Aloy fight Hades in the Horizon Zero Dawn, and the current truce between the two factions is tenuous at best. What doesn't help is that there's a rebel faction led by a defector named Regala. She believes that the two tribes should always be at war, and her faction has even learned how to override the machines with the help of Silence. After fighting off an ambush by said forces, Aloy is granted passage by the Tanakh to explore the Forbidden West and sets off to find Silence. Aloy ends up tracking him down to a Zero Dawn facility, one of the many built by previous humanity to help shield their descendants and give them time to grow as the machines overran and consumed the planet. She discovers that Silence tortured Hades to gain information, something that kind of left the AI effectively broken. She shuts down Hades, then proceeds further into the complex, where she finds a copy of the Gaia root kernel. With the potential salvation in her hand, she turns to exit and is met by a group of humans with enhancements that make them basically invincible to damage. Not only that, but they have a clone of Elizabeth Sobek, the scientist from the previous game that was cloned by Gaia 20 years prior to create Aloy. With their clone of Sobek, now known as Beta, they are able to manipulate their way through the facility as Aloy did, which they want to gain the ability to reset the ecosystem. After wiping out all life on Earth, their plans is to recreate a world perfectly suited for themselves using both Gaia and Beta. These beings, known as Zeniths, are members of a space colony ship known as Far Zenith that were sent to look for a new home 1,000 years ago in the past. Using advanced technologies developed by the brilliant minds that were part of this mission, they've extended their lives and effectively made themselves immortal and invulnerable to forms of damage from conventional weapons. Now that we have the basic outline of the story presented, I'd like to delve into some things specifically that the story did really well and a few things that bugged us. First, the character animations in this game have been improved exponentially from the first game. When you see Aloy interacting with characters in her story, you see them as real people. They move, they have expressions conveying their emotions, and you really feel like you're looking into a living world. The voice acting was always great, but in Zero Dawn, we could see very tight shots that were used to hide the lack of motion capture and character animations presented. The shots from Zero Dawn feel almost like Mass Effect or Dragon Age Origins, where the characters had tight face shots and no motion capture for dialogue performances. In Forbidden West, we see every character be emotive, and it really sells the story to us in every possible cutscene. The only open world game that I've seen really deliver at this scale with every single NPC that you have a main or side quest with being so wonderful presented is Red Dead Redemption 2. It's impressive here how the development team managed to put forward such a strong showing compared to the first game. They clearly spent their time in the last 5 years since Zero Dawn's release optimizing and mastering the Decimus engine in order to squeeze every drop of performance out of it. And we can't forget about the performances. Lance Reddick returns as Aloy's nemesis Silence and gives another chilling performance. In the first game, he was something of a mystery, with him being presented as the benevolent figure that was attempting to help Aloy in her fight against Hades. It is only really revealed near the end of the game that his real pursuit is knowledge. He is obsessed with learning more about the ancient society that preceded their own, and he is willing to go to any lengths to get it. Now, the mask is off. Silence plays everything even closer to the chest. He needs Aloy because of her genetic sequence, which allows her to access the knowledge and facilities that he would never have any hope to access on his own. But he also knows that Aloy wouldn't agree to his methods when it comes to how far he is willing to go, and who he is willing to sacrifice to get said information. Reddick creates a character that is somehow menacing despite having one of the most soothing voices in the industry, which is a testament to his delivery. While speaking to Aloy, you feel that Silence wants her to find him, but he would also enter in a second if he had any other way to obtain this information that he seeks. While we are on the subject, Ashley gives her best performance of her career here, not only as Aloy, but as Beta and Elizabeth as well. Having to play multiple characters is difficult for any actor. Ashley is playing 3 characters that represent different aspects of the same person is nothing short of impressive. Forbidden West may be a contender for Game of the Year, but I think that if Ashley doesn't win award for best performance, it'll be a crime. As Sobek, Ashley is playing a scientist whose expertise and brilliance literally saved humankind, but she withdraws from human connections. Sobek is often shown to us as a woman who spends her time figuring out how to save humanity and forgoes connections with others as she sees as they are not too important to her mission. As Aloy, on the other hand, she's playing a determined young woman who feels like she needs to withdraw from her personal connections, but does so with hesitation. She clearly has Sobek's tendency to avoid formal personal connections, but we really know that it's from her time being shunned by the Nora tribe and growing up as an outcast with only one companion. Despite this, we see that Aloy really does care about people and is close with them. She obviously feels the same pressures as Sobek, knowing that she is the only one who can save humanity, but she can't completely cut herself off from people. As such, we see that she really does care for her companions from Zero Dawn, such as Erand and Varl, and even grows to care for her new companions, Zoe and Alva. Aloy is a different person than Sobek, despite having the same genetic makeup. As Beta, I feel like Ashley really shines. Beta is a clone which was created with the sole intention of becoming a tool for the Zeniths. She describes being kept alone and being educated only through educational softwares that were developed by the previous Earth civilization. She is really only summoned to be in the presence of others when they need her to provide or decode access to something involving knowledge of Gaia and her subsystems. It's revealed that she is regularly subjected to a mental torture at the hands of the Zeniths to keep her in line and compliance. And while she does get empathy from the Zenith known as Tilda, we learn that Tilda cuts off all contact with her at one point. Someone who is basically used from the day she is born and is never given any kind of emotion for years would have severe trauma, and Beta wears it on her sleeve. There's a definite difference in her character, and it shows what might have happened to Aloy had she not had Ross to care for her and guide her when she was young. Beta feels weak, she's trained to feel helpless against the Zenith, and it shows in her attitude after she is rescued by Aloy. The range that Ashley displays in these three characters is amazing and absolutely incredible. As for the story itself, I really enjoyed the main story for all of its parts. The high sci-fi concepts got notched up to 11 in this game, and as a longtime fan of the genre, I felt like the story carried naturally from the first game. Seeing the appearance of the Zeniths, who faked their ship explosion from 1,000 years ago to leave Earth fully behind, felt like a continuation of the threads that were set up in Zero Dawn. We heard of the Odyssey project and Far Zenith in the first game, and it was mentioned a few times how the fact that it failed was so unbelievable to some of those who helped work on the project. Finding out that it didn't, and that the people aboard the ship kept a brand new world to themselves, is fitting with the characterization of the Zeniths that we see in the game. Tilda, the friendly Zenith who helped Beta for a while and ends up helping Aloy against the others, explains that the wealthy and powerful were the ones who got on board Far Zenith, and that they always wanted to make sure that they were the ones who survived, going as far as faking their own deaths and finding a way to make themselves functionally immortal. And seeing how the mysterious signal affected more than just Hades was an interesting twist as well. Learning that the other subsystems had all gone rogue meant that Aloy had to deal with several different AI that all had control over different systems that could help manipulate and keep her from achieving her goal, each presenting its own challenge that Aloy had to overcome in order to reunite them with Gaia and get the terraforming system back under control. With the help of these three AI, Gaia will be able to retake Hephaestus, the AI that used to create the machines, which will allow Gaia to craft the exact things that she needs to help the Earth recover from the damage that has been done the past 20 years since the mysterious signal. My favorite moment in the entire game was during the quest to subdue Poseidon, the AI used for purifying the waters of the planet. In order to return Poseidon, Aloy has to travel to a place known in the old world as Las Vegas. Yeah, that Las Vegas. While there, she meets a man named Morlund, who is a delver, something like a treasure hunter in the Horizon universe. He's seeking something that he calls embers, special holographic projectors that his grandfather showed him as a boy that would project images into the air like magic. He has found memories of them, and he wants them to recreate those memories with his grandfather. Aloy agrees to help him and sets off to the underwater ruins of Vegas to retrieve them. After a long time searching and a boss battle with a fierce boss, Morlund and his team descend into Vegas to retrieve the embers. Upon returning to the surface, Aloy discovers that she returned power to the city and that there are lights now coming up from the ruins and lighting up the desert for miles on end. Seeing Morlund react to the lights and seeing that Aloy is truly happy for him was one of the most heartwarming things in the game, and it was really a special moment. For all of the time that Aloy spends in a rush, she does take a few moments to look at the lights herself and to congratulate Morlund for having created such a magical place in a world where technology can often mean death. There are many moments like this over the game, mostly in side quests, but this moment felt really special against everything else in the game. Much like the graffiti scene in The Last of Us, there's a short moment of rest and wonder against a backdrop of a world that is genuinely terrifying. As for problems with the story, there are two that I see, and these are really just personal issues that I had. First, it seems off that Silence effectively disappears for a large part of the story. He communicates with Aloy during the first parts of the story, but then Aloy breaks the focus that he hacked to keep track on her. I understand this is a story beat for Aloy. She's not letting Silence have control over her. However, I feel like Silence would go to great lengths to make sure that he knew exactly what she was doing, especially considering that his grand plan to use the Tanakh to distract the Zeniths to gain entrance to their stronghold at the end of the game, it just seemed a little weird. Silence is such a fantastic character that it felt disappointing to not get more of him throughout the game. After the reveal that he is only helping Aloy to pursue his own ends in the first game, I was expecting a lot more of a cat and mouse dynamic between the two. We know that Silence needs Aloy to get his hands on some of the most important information. However, in this game, it just seemed like a major downgrade in my personal opinion. The other thing that seemed kind of weird with the story was Regala. Her character was necessary for the conflict involving the tribes, and I feel like her story started very strong. The problem with her is that she never feels like a real threat, and she only appears in 3 missions throughout the story as a secondary antagonist. She also submits to Aloy, if you choose to spare her like I did, with very little resistance. I personally would have loved to have seen more of her and felt more of what it was like to fight a feared former marshal of the Tanakh. Horizon Forbidden West makes some great strides in refining what is already a fantastic combat system. Players familiar with the first game will have no trouble jumping right in. One awesome touch is that certain skills that were unlocked in Zero Dawn are basic skills here for Aloy at the start of Forbidden West. The only issue here is that you have to go out of your way to learn these if you're a player that's new to the franchise. Outside of that one issue that most players will solve pretty quickly while playing through the game, Horizon's unique combat still feels amazing once you're engaging with the massive machines that are your major enemy types throughout the game. Within the Horizon franchise, machine combat is a series of choices and puzzles that need to be made and solved. In the early game, you'll be fighting a lot of small to mid-sized machines. A quick scan with Aloy's focus will reveal weaknesses of the enemy, and then it's up to you to figure out how to exploit them. With these smaller and weaker enemies, the solution might be easy. Shoot a conveniently located canister on the machine's back for a large chunk of damage. Easy peasy. But as you progress through Aloy's journey, you'll start running into bigger and badder machines that require you to get a little more, let's say, creative with your approaches. For instance, in the first battle with a Tremor Tusk, a large machine resembling a mammoth in construction, you may choose to blow up some of the freeze canisters placed on the battlefield that will weaken it. Once said mammoth is inflicted with the battle status effect, you can then shoot the large weak points on its underside to cause an explosion that will cause massive damage to the behemoth. Or, if you're fighting a Thunderjaw, a machine resembling a Tyrannosaurus, you can weaken its armor with acid effects, then shoot its disc launchers, and then use those own extremely powerful weapons against it. The player is given many choices in how to engage each machine type, and it feels incredible to make these decisions in the moment with the monstrous robo-fauna bearing down on you. In order to combat all of these enemies, Aloy is armed with an impressive arsenal of weapons. For long range, she might equip a sharpshooter bow to cause big damage at a slow rate of fire. For general range combat, she may use a hunter bow, which gives a more medium range, faster attack for a medium amount of damage. There's also a crossbow that's to do quick chip damage or quickly infect status effects. For stealth play, Aloy has traps and tripwires, both designed to put large amounts of status or damage into a machine in a single burst. The bolt cast is a ranged weapon designed to put tons of elemental damage at range, not quite as effective as a trap, but more so than a bow and with less of a crafting cost. Each weapon type will also support multiple types of elements that you can use to exploit your enemy's weaknesses. The shock effect may paralyze the machine for a few moments, while freezing an enemy will make it vulnerable to basic impact damage. The new adhesive damage type will slow down your foes for a time and is great at locking down smaller units while taking on a large enemy. A big issue that a lot of players had with the first game was the melee combat, however. It didn't feel particularly engaging. While I have to agree, I never had a major problem with it personally. It was simple, but it did feel a little weird, seeing as it was a little bit of a contrast to the intricate range combat system. Here in Forbidden West, the melee system gets more of its own identity. While it's still not as intricate as the range and trap combat, melee combat gets its own tree, where the player can unlock many skills that will add to the combat puzzles. Where Aloy used to get the ability to hit harder and have a better chance to knock down opponents in Zero Dawn, here we get to see skills that are a little more deterministic. Aloy can swing her spear around herself to push enemies away and gain precious space, inflict more of a quick flurry of burst damage on a single opponent if you want to, or attacks that launch her into the air, allowing the player to unleash a flurry of arrows for a follow-up attack. All these add a huge amount of dynamic play to a melee system that was definitely lacking in the first game, and it makes for a much more versatile hand-to-hand combat system. While we are on the topic of combats, the arena, a new area to challenge a player's skill against the terrors of the machine world of Horizon, is a fantastic addition to the game. The player is pitted against machines in a small arena. Cover is limited, and there is a time limit that means players that might traditionally take things a little bit slow and stealthy, like our own Tallen here, must face their foes head on. In this mode, players will fight against beasts that are fought in the story, but need to use all of their knowledge in order to take down the artificial war beast as quickly as possible. This mode was a challenge, even after playing through the majority of the campaign. Being trapped with a limited amount of cover with a Slitherfang and a pair of Snapmaw with a curated loadout meant having to attempt these boss fights multiple times in order to figure out what was the best way to take these things down in a pretty short amount of time. But man, when you finally take them down, it is absolutely worth it. The rewards for doing so are some of the best weapons and armor sets in the game, so you're definitely not going to want to skip some of these challenges. They've really forced you to learn the ins and outs of the fighting combat system here in this game. Now, when it comes to combat, there is one disappointing thing about Forbidden West, and it was the same thing that I was disappointed in when I went through Zero Dawn. Human enemies in this franchise don't hold a candle when compared to the machines. I understand, from a lore's perspective, humans aren't the danger in this universe. However, I wish there was a little bit more variety when it comes to the human enemies. There are basically 4 types that will all have really basic roles in combat. There's a warrior/soldier, who is a standard infantry that rushes to attack. There are archers that will stand back and shoot you. There are heavy gunners that will have a little bit more health and a big gun, acting almost like a very slow moving turret. And then there's the leader/captain type that is basically a beefed up warrior. Again, not saying that there needs to be more variety of the machines, but it seems that there could be a little bit more done to improve the human fighting enemies. They just feel underwhelming when compared to fighting a machine. Even Eric of the Zenith just feels like a human enemy who can fly around and attack a little bit faster than the regular humans. I'd love to see in the next entry of the franchise to try and make the humans a little bit more, well, better. Maybe Guerrilla can take some inspiration from The Last of Us 2. They had a lot better AI when it came to fighting on human versus human. Horizon Forbidden West isn't perfect, but it sure is close. Sure, there are some minor gripes that I have, but I enjoyed every second of the adventure throughout Forbidden West. More machines, bigger stakes, more sci-fi goodness, and some really great emotional moments in the story that definitely hit hard in both happy and sad ways. The combat is improved, the open world is one of the liveliest and most gorgeous that have ever been created, and it features absolutely phenomenal performances from the entire cast, especially from Ashley and Lance. And despite the climbing system being something of a step back, nothing beats being able to call down a robo-dinosaur to carry you through the air to any destination that you might need to clear out once you've done with the story. If you're looking for a next-gen game that will really put your PS5 to the work, make sure to pick this one up. In my opinion, Horizon Forbidden West ranks a solid 9.5 out of 10, and I'm looking forward to the rumored DLC and another playthrough to experience the whole thing over again. What did you think about Forbidden West? Did you get a chance to challenge the arena or hunt down a Thunderjaw and strip it for parts to upgrade your armor? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments as always. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for more reviews and hit the bell for notifications to be notified when we post news, reviews, and short videos for tips on all the newest blockbuster games that are coming out this year. I'm Tallen 59 Gaming Direct, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Horizon Forbidden West. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Johnny.